we don't ever allow our kids to get bored. Boredom is when that creativity comes out. It's when those synapses start firing, because you're coming up with ideas to get rid of that boredom. But if you're instantly handed a tablet, a phone, a remote control,
Constant
whatever it may
stimulation.
be, it's a lot of stimulation that the brain can't handle. So when the brain can't handle it, it can go one way over, like it's like a car, right? You over
Yeah.
rev it, it goes into the wrong gear, over revving, or it can stop.
Welcome to Happy Hour, where we're flipping the script on the traditional happy hour. Instead of winding down with the drink, we're here to talk about what actually makes us happy and learn from society's healers, therapists, coaches, elders, spiritual leaders, and everyone in between. Join us as we dive into stories, insights, and tools that help us grow, heal, and support one another. Whether you're a seeker or a seer, this is for you. I'm Anurag, founder of Hpy, and this series will be hosted by myself, along with my co-hosts, Mira and Tess, and we're excited to explore new ways to bring more joy and well-being into our lives. So take a deep breath, and let's dig in.
Today we're joined by Niki Castle, a certified mental health coach and founder of Healing Minds. Niki works with parents and young athletes, helping families build resilience, self-awareness, and tools to navigate modern challenges. We're talking about something nearly every parent is thinking about: how technology is affecting our kids' mental health. With screens everywhere and social media starting younger and younger, it's a lot to navigate. Together, we'll explore what's really going on behind the screens and how parents can help better support their kids in this digital age.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Welcome to Happy Hour.
Thank you so much.
Super excited to have you on the show, Niki. I read your background and our entire team was like, we absolutely need to have Niki on because it sounds like you're at the intersection of something really, really interesting when it comes to mental health. So if you can, just give our audience a quick introduction to yourself, your practice, what got you into therapy, and who you're serving today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. First of all, a lot about what I do is who I am. So I'll tell you who I am, and that will kind of lead into what I do. I grew up in Southern California playing sports, went on to play basketball at Washington State. And then it was during that time I had a career ending injury. And that kind of was one of the first tastes of struggling with my mental health that I noticed. But I went on in life and was a sports reporter. And all through all of that, I noticed that there was always something wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And a lot of people, because I was high performing or I was doing well, achieving things, they kind of just let some of the glaring signs and symptoms pass by. Like, oh, she's
Yeah.
okay. I struggled for 20 years, and it was 10 years ago that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder after my second hospitalization and attempt to take my life. So
Oh, man.
I was put in it was a medically induced coma. And when I came out of it, it was like I was born again and realized
Oh, wow.
what I needed to do. And I wanted to help people not struggle like I had for so long, because not knowing how to help my mental health, I think really held me back a lot. And what I do now is help the younger generation, help create an environment around them, because a lot of people expect kids to just grow up and be
Yeah.
successful and just move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But we need to be advocates for them. And we're not born with coping skills. We're not born with mental health management, things like that. So it's helping these kids who are in pretty deep in terms of anxiety, depression.
Yeah.
But what we're finding is for kids, a lot of it is situational. It's things circumstantial. It's what they're experiencing at that time. It's not something that will be prolonged where they need medication. And so giving them the right tools and skills, we find, is helping, kids throughout their lifetime, where now they can handle as bigger and, larger challenges enter their world, they're able to better navigate those. And
Yeah.
being an athlete, I've really started working with a lot of not only athletes, but I've honed in on coaches, on athletic coaches, because when I'm out speaking or out sharing my story or working with people, a lot of the coaches, when they hear I played basketball, they want to talk to
Yeah.
me like, oh,
Of
okay,
course. Yeah.
and they came up. And so a lot of coaches were like, I wish I had this. I wish I knew how to address a
Absolutely.
kid's mental health
Yep.
struggle or what to look for. And so
Absolutely.
now I go and I work with coaches and at different schools, and I have a program to teach them how to advocate for their athletes' mental health. And so on both sides, I'm trying to help the younger generation, but also equip the people who are around the children
Absolutely.
to
Every single
help
day.
them. Yeah.
That's powerful, and thank you so much for your vulnerability. I know it's, while we are through we're getting better as society to destigmatize sort of the deeper mental health challenges, still it takes a lot of courageous effort to sort of acknowledge what you went through, and really it sounds like you've transformed that struggle into something really beautiful.
Thank you.
Um, and it's extending in a lot of ways. Can you tell us a little bit more about, like, what is the pulse of what is it like being a kid today? You talk to a lot of kids. I have daughters myself, and it's sounds pretty interesting, of an environment with the mobile phone, with sort of unlimited access to information, to constant stimulation. It's a very different childhood, it sounds like. So, if you're to kinda give a sneak peek, like, what is childhood like these days?
Well, I always think of it kind of like a funnel. When we're young, we can't we're not able to comprehend as much. We're not able to um, navigate or understand challenges. When
Yeah.
we're older, our funnel is bigger and we can kind
Yep.
of take on more. But the problem is these kids that have a small opening or where their brain is still developing are given more information than what that funnel can handle. And so by having the mobile phone, social media, any, just information they want, it's overwhelming. And
Yeah.
so what you see is that anxiety come into play of, what are other people doing? In sports, it's teams are talking about a game before it even happens. So the week lead up, they're talking smack to each other. And then by the time the game comes, there's an eruption. So it's not just being in the moment, which we know, right? In mental health is so important. Mindfulness,
Absolutely.
being in the
Mhm.
moment. These kids don't have that ability. Their time is being pulled in many different directions. We parents, I'm a parent, we
Yeah. Yeah.
overstimulate our children. Um,
Absolutely.
my son, I caught myself, he's 8 years old, and in the spring there was an overlapping of sports. He was at one point doing playing football, baseball, soccer, and piano lessons for an 8-year
Wow.
old who's going to school.
Wow.
We had to look at ourselves and say, what are we doing?
Yeah,
And
totally.
I practice. So it
Yeah.
shows how imperfect we are as human beings, even when we know
Absolutely.
what's
Totally.
the right answer. But I think it's giving them the opportunity to be bored is
Yeah,
really
totally.
a big
Absolutely.
answer. We don't ever allow our kids to get bored. They have and boredom is when that creativity comes out. It's when those synapses start firing, because you're coming up with ideas to get rid of that boredom. But if you're instantly handed a tablet, a phone, a remote control,
Constant
whatever it may
stimulation.
be, it's a lot of stimulation that the brain can't handle. So when the brain can't handle it, it can go one way over, like it's like a car, right? You over
Yeah.
rev it, it goes into the wrong gear, over revving, or it can stop. And so
Yeah.
because it just shuts down, and that's when we get the
Yeah.
depression. So
Yep.
it goes both ways because of how the body reacts to that information overload and that stimulation overload. And that's where
Yeah.
we kind of have to navigate. So
Yeah.
the pulse really is that there's a lot going on in these kids' lives that you and I
Totally.
didn't have to worry about back then.
I mean, when I grew up, it was boredom was just a way of life. It'd be like, "Hey, finish your homework, go out to the park and play, just be back before
Yeah,
sunset," and that's what it was.
it was.
And we felt psychologically safe to do that, and it was beautiful. I think in my life, attribute a lot of enjoying building, and now I'm building a company to those experiences of being bored and
Mhm.
and it sounds like today society is sort of we don't give our kids the opportunity to do that. And taking that sort of building upon what you just said, what's your advice to parents who feel that pressure each and every day of like, my kid's gonna get left behind. I got to do this. This is what my peers are doing. Like, how are they going to even get into UCLA,
Mhm.
or some sort of state school because it's so competitive? Like, how do we? Because it all sounds like it starts with the parents, right?
Oh, yeah. I
Myself
mean,
included.
yeah, kids don't come out saying, "I wanna do this, I wanna do that." They do what they're told or what they're shown and the opportunities they're given.
Yeah,
I think the answer really is to stop trying to keep up with the Joneses
yeah.
because, everyone wants to be in club sports because, that person played club sports and they got a scholarship. I mean, I get it all the time. People want to know, how did I get a scholarship? Well, in the 90s, you just went to a tournament, and if you're good, you
Yeah.
stood out. I signed my national letter of intent while I was eating my breakfast cereal. There was no big signing
Wow.
day. There was no hype. Like, no one cared.
Yeah.
But nowadays, everything, we're aging our kids. We're giving them these big events, these big, what's next? How are you going to keep them excited
Yeah.
if, they've already traveled around the world, or they've already done that? And we don't need to stop our lives, but I will say one thing we have done is this summer we've done structured unstructured, we call it, where he
I
has an
love that.
hour, where it's an hour we dedicate where he has to just figure out what you're going to do. And it's
Yeah.
not even because his best friend lives right next door, but it's not even playing with him. It's
Yeah.
by yourself, playing
By
time.
yourself.
And it's amazing to watch because the first 10 minutes is that struggle. It's almost like a withdrawal, right? Like where,
Yeah.
withdrawal of something. And so he'll struggle and, can I do this? And every option, it's no, 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 no. And then about 15, 20 minutes into it, I notice it's quiet and he's playing something. He's
Yeah.
building something. Yesterday, he set up something so he could pitch the ball, work on pitching. I had
Awesome.
nothing to do with it because the last
Yeah.
thing I want to do is ever try to make him follow in my footsteps.
Totally.
That was my journey. That was what
Yeah.
happened with me. Not every kid wants to go to UCLA. Not every kid can go to UCLA. So if their parent is trying to set expectations for them that aren't realistic for their child, I mean, that's just going to cause problems. That's one of the first things we tell an athlete when setting goals is set realistic goals. If you're coming off the bench, don't say, I'm going to be the leading scorer, on the team.
Yeah.
Be
Yep.
realistic. Like, I want to
Yeah.
improve on my dribbling, or I want to, those
Yep.
kind of things, really specific. So when they do achieve them, there's that sense of accomplishment.
Yep.
And kids
Yep.
don't get that as often because we do it for them, or we don't have time
Yeah.
for it. So let's just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Correct.
rat race, but how do you stop that, right? I mean, you can't stop society, but you do
Yeah.
have that little bit of control in your own home of what your child has, that time to just be a child. Just be a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I feel like you're preaching to the choir, and every parent who's listening to this is like, "Oh my God, I need to do that." Peeling that back one more step, I know for me personally, I heard a piece of advice that the only thing that in life you can do is control the inputs. And so in our family, when something goes awry, my wife and I are constantly assessing what inputs are coming into our minds and our
Mhm,
lives that are driving
mhm.
behavior. And it's often that sort of innocent scroll on Instagram for the micro break that parents need,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
between God knows what's happening, the meltdown and the cereal and the driving around and whatever it is. But it's you sometimes have to be careful because that
yeah.
small little impression leaves a thought in the brain. So as a clinician, like what are like three tactical things that you can tell parents that, hey, this is how to cultivate boredom. This is how to cultivate space in your kid's life.
I always tell parents, know your child. Know your child. Know what they are good at, know what they're not as good at, know what they enjoy. Just understand your child as a person, because they will,
Yeah.
if you pay attention, they will give you all the information you need of how to make them successful, so to speak,
Yeah.
So my son he excels in math. He
Yep.
loves building. He says he wants to be a robotics engineer. That's all he loves to
Awesome.
do, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm
Yep.
like, okay, for
Awesome.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has it down. And so I will give him things that maybe we give him games that maybe will go along that way. Like he built a hydroponic hand that everything was through, hydraulics, but it was water.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, so those
Wow.
kind of things where it's maybe not making something out of nothing, but in that moment of boredom, he's picking that up and building
Yeah.
something on his
Absolutely.
own. So I say, know your child. And then I say, be realistic again about expectations.
Yeah.
If you're trying to create a space of boredom or create a space where they can do that, you can't expect that to happen overnight. You
Yeah,
can't
totally.
just sit your kid out there and be like, go. I mean, this is
Yeah.
something that we've been doing for a while. We even have a name for it and we have a time on the calendar. Like he knows. So as unstructured, like I said, it's structured, unstructured. But he knows that that's his time. We even have an alarm for it on our Alexa. But
That's awesome.
it does, because kids want to know that it's finite. They want to know
Yes.
there's an end time to it, not
Absolutely.
that this is forever. Because now they're not thinking of forever. They're able to be mindful. I said that to my son
Absolutely.
yesterday. He wanted to know if when we got home, could he play with, I said, let's get home first.
Yeah.
Where are we? Look around. And I get a quick mindful exercise. Say, tell me some colors you see as we were driving. Tell me
Yeah.
some
Oh,
signs.
that's awesome.
So it gets
Yep.
him in that mindset. So I think
Of just being
having,
present.
yeah, just being present. And that's what we, parents, kids, we can work on. Everyone can work on just being in that moment. I heard something yesterday where someone said, ask someone in our session, ask them when the last time they took a deep breath. When was the last time you took a deep breath? We
I've
don't.
got children. So
Exactly. Yes.
that's a very common occurrence for me.
I know.
Maybe every 20 minutes.
Yeah. But it's, some people realize they haven't all day. And so we have to take care of ourselves in order to
Yeah.
take care of our children. We can't expect to
Yeah.
be a hot mess and then they are able to just go from there, because we lead by example. Who do they learn from? We are
Uh,
their first and foremost teacher when they enter this
absolutely.
world. And so it's
Yeah.
just you want to make it a whole home dynamic.
No, what you're saying is so relevant because I'm smiling because this is literally the daily conversation my wife and I have at home. And, she's much more intentional about movement in space, and I think mindfulness comes a little bit more easier to her. I think she's always had a cognitive, metacognitive process of just self-observation. For me, it's a newer skill, right, that I
Mhm.
developed. Tend to be I'm a founder after all. But I really have to try to sit down. I have to try to. I woke up this morning and was like, I should bake a baguette, and I baked a baguette. I don't know why, you know, and you have to ask the question. Yeah, on the surface, like, oh my god, it's so cool, I made a baguette. But then the question is, as well, my kids are seeing that, and could that say, 20, 30 minutes, could that have been used just to sit and just sort of like listen to the wind chimes outside and just sort of see where your mind goes? And not to say cooking is a non-mindful activity. Everything can be mindful.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now switching into your practice, I want to just know a little bit more. So it sounds like you support athletes primarily and sounds like coaches. Um, Tell us a little bit more about your practice. Like what does a typical day of Nikki look like?
Well, that's interesting. Every day is different. Because I do some one-on-one, not as much. I'm kind of pivoting away from that because I have seen such a need in the young athlete world. When
Yeah.
I started coaching soccer, I had been away from the world for so long that I saw how it shifted. And again, that just the pressure that's being put on kids to perform, to play club all summer, it's not allowing them to be a kid.
Yeah.
And I thought of my own childhood, and I know I started doing travel ball at 11, going to AAUs,
Wow.
traveling all over. But get this, by 15, I quit basketball, club basketball for several years.
Wow.
Yeah. The only reason I got back to
Wow.
it is because I was getting scholarship offers.
Scholarships. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And I was like, well, okay, but
Save my
I
family
was
some money. Yeah.
right. And so
Yep.
I was burnt out. I was burnt
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with volleyball. I fell in love with track, other things that took place of that. But I feel like a lot of what I do with them is the same approach I wish I had. And it's
Yeah.
understanding the whole athlete, because you can't just look at them and what they're doing on the field. You
Yep.
have to understand their home dynamic. You talk about
Absolutely.
inputs. What's happening when they're going home? Are they, getting yelled at on the car ride home from practice?
Yep.
Or are they going home and it's super, positive? You have to kind of get to know the kids on that level. For the coaches, what is their experience? How many years have they worked? Do they have a background in mental health? 95% of coaches that I've dealt with do not at all. They're like, yeah,
Wow.
we've had some classes and we've kind of talked about it a lot, and the school has something. We have a school psychologist. I'm like, but what do you know? And we
Yeah.
find the data shows that athletes spend 60% more time with their coaches than anyone else in their life if they're playing a club sport.
Wow.
60%.
Wow.
Yeah. So if they're
They're like
having
their
that much.
caregiver, effectively.
Exactly.
More
So
than a
why are we
caregiver.
not equipping our coaches with the same
Absolutely.
things we want our parents to have or our teachers to have or whatever else? Why are we
Yeah.
not giving those tools that, especially, when you're traveling, you get to know a kid more. You see
Yep.
their tendencies. Are
Totally.
they in the back of the bus, curled up, sleeping, or are they having fun with the team? You can see those dynamics start to shift and form. And so I started to think of my own career. And like I said, everything I do is based off of my experience and how
Absolutely.
could I think of, if I had the perfect advocate, if I had the perfect person to help me, what would they look like?
Yeah.
What would they have
Yeah.
offered?
Yeah.
And I think of how much time I spent with my coaches and what they did not see. And it was, I mean, there was no discussion of the vagus nerve back then, but I would
Yeah.
throw up before games. I would get
Oh
so
my
nervous that
God.
I would just get, right here, and there was never talk about it. My coaches would
Wow.
always say, "Why are you so much in your head?" I mean, yeah, I was in my head. Or I remember one was like, "You're so inconsistent. One day you're great." Well, maybe let's look at my total picture as a person, because then they would have seen I was getting weird things like I got shingles at the age of 19
Oh
when
my
I had,
God.
yeah. And at the same time, I'm benching 165 and I have 7% body fat, but I'm getting
Jeez.
these weird things. I had a lung collapse. Like, so understanding the whole
Wow.
picture of what the athlete is experiencing and how that impacts their performance. It's a lot of those little things given to coaches that are outside the X's and O's, because that's the thing anymore, because kids are getting so much information and so many things being input.
Totally. Yeah.
They need to have that person to guide them, to help them, who's spending that much time with them, to really form. And as their, frontal cortex is still forming, help it, process those things in a beneficial manner.
I mean, it sounds a lot like the therapeutic relationship, right? It's like if the therapist continues to work on themselves and they grow as individuals and their clients do. In the same way, it sounds like the coach client relationship. There's an opportunity. It it makes me think of Ted Lasso, which is like one of my favorite shows of all time. And I think it's presented lightly, but it's true. Like
Mhm.
at the upper echelons, I mean, you have Kobe in the back. It's like the game is mental.
Yeah.
Your physical conditioning probably gets to a point where you know the mechanics. You've got muscle memory to a point, but then the game really is mental. And I think
Yeah.
so. It sounds like even advantageous to the game. It's like the
Oh, yeah.
next opportunity is mental.
It is, because we've got these kids. We're seeing that the talent is next level because they're
Yeah.
starting younger. They've got individualized coaching. There's so many ways to get that talent up. But what we're finding is, with if it's a trauma, if it's a challenge, just anything that may disrupt what they're doing, their pattern, their daily routine, if anything disrupts it, it can throw them totally off track. And then that leads to injury, or vice versa. Injury can lead to throwing off track. So you want to have that mental stability in place. And I look at it as just like practicing, just like going to the weight room. You do those things, you do mindfulness practices, you do goal setting trainings where you're
Absolutely.
setting goals. All those things need to be a part of the total athlete. And we were ignoring that for so many years.
I mean, I'm sure, certainly very far away from being an athlete, but I do know if I go to the gym and you're lifting in a set and you're mindful of the movement, completely changes the exercise. If you're like hyper attuned to doing that last rep, that's what gets you to the last rep. And so it
Mhm.
intuitively makes sense. Um, Switching gears a little bit, on the technology angle, obviously HPY is a technology company, and we're really thinking a lot about intentionally, what is the role of AI and technology in the future of mental health? What does continuous care look like? In session, out of session. Um, how are you seeing kids these days use technology and different tools to engage their mental health? Are you seeing curious, like have kids come to your session and be like, ChatGPT said this?
Oh yeah. Yes, yes. I mean, technology, AI, it's been a game changer in many ways. One, with through GPT, you find younger kids are getting more answers than maybe just Googling something, or
Totally.
more advice rather than just, the black and white statistics of things.
Yeah.
But what I love is all of the things that are destigmatizing mental health. So having apps that have therapy, or
Yeah.
even like there's apps for meditation
Yeah.
is more people do it now. I remember my dad used to do it, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, you're just taking a nap. I was like, that's just an excuse to take a nap, right? And so I didn't understand these things, but now, and that's why I share my story, because I noticed when I came, started doing my own work. We talk about, right, you work on
Yeah.
yourself and you can help others. So
Yeah.
when I started doing my own work, I found that, I could get answers by looking things up or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I shared my story with people, it would have such a huge impact. So even with technology, being able to connect people, being able
Yeah.
to have those conversations that gets rid of the stigma. And then also, I find a lot of times, because kids do have so much information, if you
Yeah.
break down the biology of things, of the why things, they get it. They
Yep.
get it. So
Yep.
having that AI, having something that really can demonstrate or offer um, a somewhat, I don't want to say pragmatic, but just a different way of looking at it. Um,
Absolutely.
it
The
helps. It
reframe.
helps. Yeah, exactly. It helps them understand better. So I definitely have relied on those things, because if I tell one of my younger clients, like, here's a worksheet and can you take that and send it back to me, and they're gonna look at me like I'm
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
I have to function in their world. They say meet them where they're at. Meet them where
Absolutely.
they're at. And
Totally.
that's what I try to do.
Yeah, it's fun. You'll see some updates from us, but that's exactly the direction that you're headed in. And
Mm.
I'm a millennial, and every time a therapist emailed me a PDF, I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't know if I have printer paper today, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so it makes sense. Yeah, I think like, and so now technology is useful, but it has to be used with some intention. Where have you seen technology go awry? Like, have you had an instance in your practice when you're coaching, or you're sort of guiding uh, a client of yours, and you're like, it gave you some pause? Has there ever been a moment like that?
I've had two moments like that, actually, that I can think of. And both of them had to do with not misinformation, but information that was away from the path that we were trying to take, which made the client think that they knew better. And so that they could take their recovery in their own hands. When, if it was used with guidance, we could have picked the parts that were maybe best,
Yeah.
but to take things onto their own, into their own hands. I think a lot of times technology, AI, it makes us think we know more than we really know, right?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
oh,
Yeah.
I got that. I got that answer. I can figure it out. Oh, it just explained to me what to do in this moment. But then
Yeah.
to take that and implement it,
Very
sometimes
different.
that's the gap with technology. the
Yeah.
implementation of the information. And so you have to really monitor that with clients, especially kids. They're going to want to take
Yep.
everything that you're talking about and fact check
Yep.
it. They
Yep.
fact check it, they're going to find a shortcut for it. And it's
Yep.
not a bad thing. It's not a
Yep.
bad thing, but it's just something that you have to be aware of and you have to work around. So it's definitely just helping them understand the best way to use the technology.
Yeah. I remember even in my own therapeutic journey, I was that functional client who would Google everything, search everything, know the jargon, and it was actually only until recently where I realized the mind-body connection and
Mm,
developing the perception. There's no shortcut to developing attunement with yourself. Like, you
mhm.
can't chat GPT that. That's like you gotta close your eyes and feel it, and some of those feelings aren't that great. And so but that's the process. And
Yeah.
so, it's fascinating. I'm glad to hear that, it sounds like on the spectrum, you have the AI doomsdayers, but you have the AI optimists and the AI pragmatists. It sounds like you're in the pragmatist camp.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity for it. I think that it's opened even just my eyes to a lot of things. I use Chat GPT all the time for brainstorming or whatever else,
Okay.
when oh yeah, I mean to help like create an outline for this program and then I can take that and now
Yeah,
use the knowledge that I have. So it's created
totally.
just the skeleton structure, but
Yep.
then I can take it to the next level. So I'm definitely a fan of that. And again, it's like any tool. You just have to know how to use it right
Yeah.
because you have to guide it, and that's where I think that's where technology the gap in technology is you still have to have that human guidance.
Yeah, and I think it's like, at the end of the day, you can have the information, but it doesn't replace decision making
Hmm.
and sort of we had this interesting conversation yesterday with my wife, and we were talking about intuition, and we read something that was saying intuition is basically the autonomous process of continually evaluating your environment and world through your values.
I like that.
Um, and so when you have an intuitive feeling about something, it's usually anchored in a framework or a set of values that you already are sort of living by, and
Hmm.
that's what we coin as intuition. It's like it's like a gut thought process
Yeah.
somehow. And so I think you're absolutely right. AI plays a role, but it doesn't know our values. It can't today link those two things together,
Yeah.
quite yet, because I think it's modeled after the brain. It's not modeled after a full mind body environment.
Well, yeah, and technology doesn't have empathy. That's
Yep.
another big thing that's very important in this industry is empathy, understanding the client, where are they coming from.
Yep.
And that's something I think across the board we're lacking in is
Yeah.
empathy. We're not being taught that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and because everything is so black and white with technology.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a fascinating aspect of life because, for example, in HPY, we actually measure emotion. We actually, within every sentence, are detecting all the levels of 62 possible emotions, and we're simulating the empathetic process. But
Wow.
empathy is a two-way process, right? If I'm going through a hard day, when you shared your story with me, I can sort of communicate, I understand, and I can put myself in your position and acknowledge how
Mhm.
difficult that probably is to get to a point in your journey to self-accept it, talk about it, and then actually transmute your struggle into something positive. A machine's not gonna do that.
Mhm.
A machine's not gonna do that. And I think that distinction is really important. Okay, so the next set of questions I have is you work with an audience that is regarded as probably, athlete children, elite, sort of the future leaders of our country and future. There's a lot going on in the world that
Yeah.
is frightening, to say the least.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you feel optimistic or afraid? Maybe a little bit of both. of this
Well,
next generation that's sort of poised to take over and sort of lead the world?
I think, and maybe it's just because it's my son's generation, but the generation alpha, they're calling it now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I see that it's almost finally like things are going full circle in terms of kids, younger kids are being taught empathy more. We are seeing the importance. They're coming into a time where we are learning these things like about mental health at a younger age. Before my son could even talk, we put an emotions chart up in his room,
yeah,
and he would like take us to it and point, and usually it was like mad or whatever because he couldn't get some. But we, especially men, I mean, men are not allowed to have emotions in
yep,
our society. Men
yeah,
are not allowed to feel and feel pain and mental pain, emotional pain. And so that's my goal with my son. For the younger generations, I think that they're seeing, because a lot of them, I hear young kids. There's a kid I was working with, she just turned 16. Her parents said at 16 she can do social media, be on social media. She says
yeah.
she doesn't want to be on it now because she
That's
saw her
awesome.
friends who
Go
at
through
12,
it.
13, 14 were on it and the trouble that it caused them.
Totally.
So they're learning more from the mistakes of the other generations. So yes, I'm very hopeful, and I think that that's why I do this, is because I want to be a part of that. I don't know, maybe it's a
Yeah,
selfish thing. I want to help them because I think that there's so much
absolutely.
opportunity. And you were talking about, empathy with, it takes two people. And I think that connectiveness is hopefully going to come back in person to person or
Yeah,
experiences. And it looks like it is little by little, but that's what helps us, right? That's why if we go to
absolutely.
therapy, someone's
Totally.
listening to us, if we're doing other things. And so the generation alpha, they were just on that young side of COVID. They didn't
Yes.
have to do
Yeah.
class,
Yep.
on camera.
On
They
Zoom.
didn't have exactly. They didn't have to do that. They almost got like a fresh start where they came in, and my son started TK and they were kind of still wearing masks, but not really. So they got to
Yeah.
miss a lot of that stuff. It's the
Yeah.
kids that are 10, 11, 12, 13 that are
Yeah.
kind of in that in between stage that are working it
Yep.
out, but I think there's a lot more resources. So that's what makes me hopeful.
Yeah. That's exciting, and I think it's consistent. I see the same thing in my home is, like, my children are incredibly empathetic, like, to a
Mhm.
point where I'm like, "Wow," like, this
Yeah.
is phenomenal, and how they deal with interpersonal conflict and how they talk about it. Kids get into things at school and how they process it and how they talk about it. It's really beautiful, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Um,
kids are starting to see that there's an easier way to kind of get through and really, again, just connect. The connection is so important. It's so important.
yeah,
I think that's where people feel lost sometimes. Kids get lost.
yeah. So the last question I wanna ask is, speaking of connection, um, I've heard a lot that children's psychology comes down to actually parental psychology. It's like, there's the greatest force you can do to raise good children is be a good person yourself, and
Mhm.
and live the principles and values. So, what are some rituals that you have or that you recommend for families and for parents to create that feeling of seenness, to create that feeling of I can be at home and be whoever I want. And I'm
Mhm.
not going to be lazy. I'm still going to do the things that I need to do to accomplish in society. But home is where I'm safe.
Yeah, I like that because home should be a safe place. Unfortunately, it's not for a lot of kids, which is really
Yeah.
difficult. It wasn't for me as a kid.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in Rose Canyon, building forts and stuff. But
Yeah.
it is about the parents, and a lot of the one-on-one work I do is not only with the kids but the parents as well, helping them
Yeah.
understand. Because like I am Gen X, and we weren't taught
Yeah.
anything about so I had to learn, and a lot of it came with once I was finally medicated and decided to work on myself,
Yeah.
then I was able to be a good parent. And that's why I really motivated me is I wanted to be a good parent. I wanted to provide
Totally.
an environment that I didn't have growing up. I didn't,
Absolutely.
and then in the home, it's little moments. It's those small moments of gathering. We do every night before bedtime. It's called Family Movie. 15 to 20 minutes. We watch AGT or America's Funniest, whatever it is, but all of us were coming together and in that moment, laughing, sharing experiences.
Yeah.
We try to eat at the table, but sports makes it difficult. Life makes it
Sure.
difficult. But we do make sure to gather at least once or twice a week. Um,
Yeah.
and then just checking in, not
Yeah.
having those. I find sometimes if my son's playing, I'll just lay on the ground next to him and he'll tell me things that maybe happened a couple days ago, but it's finally starting to come through. And so it's those quiet moments. It's just being still. And
Yep.
we in this society, because we're moving so fast, like you said, you had some time where you were either, those micro moments where you're looking on social media or, baking. That's a beautiful thing. But like a lot of us turn to social media or quick things for quick, serotonin hits or feel better.
Sure.
But if we slow down and we put the phone away, because kids notice, they notice how much you're on your phone. And I even try to explain sometimes, I'm like, I'm doing work or I'm reading. It doesn't matter. He sees me on my phone. I started reading regular books again because then he sees like I'm flipping the pages. And so, oh, look, you got one coming in right now.
You want to join our podcast?
I'd- oh,
Say hello.
hi.
I think it's important. Speaking of which, I think I'm being
Yes.
called
Yes.
for those moments of connection. But thank you
Yes.
so much, Nikki, for
Of
being on the
course.
show, for sharing more about your practice, your journey, your story. If folks want to find you and connect with you, where can they do that?
My website is healingmindsmentalhealthcoaching.com, and then Instagram, Healing Minds Coaching, and Facebook, Healing Mind Coaching as well. So, and then if you just Google Niki Castle, there's a lot of information and stuff you can find.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for spending some time and sharing wisdom about our future, our children, and sort of, I feel really optimistic of
Good. Yeah, me
what's going to
too.
happen in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for Happy Hour. We hope you walked away having learned something and feeling a little less alone on the journey. If you liked what you heard, it would mean so much to us if you subscribe. You can be notified every time we have a new episode. To learn more about what we are doing at HPY, go to thinkhpy.com. Until next time, we hope you feel heard. Take care.